This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Coming up on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness, we got together with a few thousand farmers in Orlando, Florida. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this weekend's broadcast. Yeah, we're at Commodity Classic, the annual event bringing together growers from the Corn Growers Association, soybean producers, sorghum, wheat, and the equipment manufacturers, including the folks at Case IH who allowed us to come in and join us in their booth. We talked with the new Chief Executive Officer of the National Corn Growers Association, Neil Caskey, about some of the issues the corn growers have right now. At the top of the list, concerns about GMO corn blockage going into Mexico.
That's our top market, and we just want to make sure that it remains open for our business into the future. Obviously, we're having some challenges with some of the latest decrees that are clear violations of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. We're pleased with the news out of Washington this week that the U.S. Trade Representative has announced technical consultation with Mexico. That's a step in a very long journey that we're going to what we're going to see through to the finish, and we believe this is ultimately going to be resolved in a dispute consultation, and that will prevail. We have the facts and the law on our side, and we're confident that we'll continue to be able to meet Mexico's needs well into the future.
Are you getting any help, perhaps, from within in Mexico, the industries that have been so accustomed to having product from the United States? They certainly have to be somewhat friends of the U.S. corn producer, right?
Absolutely. The trade in Mexico, they love our product, they want our product, and they need our product. And so if you ask them, you talk to them, they are our biggest fans, and so we appreciate that. Obviously it's just a complication, with leaders within the government that we're dealing with now, and they're violating the trade agreement that was signed in January of 2020. The first decree that was announced trying to ban GM corn was in December of 2020, so that the ink was barely dry on that trade agreement, and here we are, violating USMCA, which was a wonderful deal for us. It included provisions on biotechnology that would preclude things like this, which is somewhat puzzling. But another decree was announced as recently as about a month ago on Valentine's Day, effectively, that accelerated the ban to kind of make it effective immediely. And so I think that was probably what, if you talk to the administration, I think that was what really kind of compelled them to act the way they did this week. So we're encouraged by that decision from the administration, and we'll be working closely with them to make sure that we see this through to a positive conclusion, because our growers deserve nothing less. Mexico, to your point, Max, is a wonderful customer, and they want to continue to be that way in the future, and this will help us get us there.
There are so many complications with our relationship with Mexico right now, whether you're talking about border security or importation of illegal drugs, security of Americans traveling in Mexico. Does that make this issue even more difficult, or does it hold promise for perhaps resolving quicker this problem the corn growers have?
Well, when you just think about just the scope of our relationship with Mexico, there are some big challenges and problems in front of us. This doesn't need to be one. We're talking about corn that should be allowed to flow into that country, and so if I was the Mexican government, I would not allow this to be a problem. In the scheme of things, this is a very small thing.
So what's the backstory here? Why has it become such an issue? Why has the president raised this as such an issue down there when there are so many other things that are lightning rods?
That would be, I would love to hear a good answer to that question, Max. And we haven't heard a good one. I know that there's some speculation that's trying to prop up some of the smaller corn producers in Mexico, but they just can't meet their needs. And if you think about, they're saying it's about human consumption at the end of the day. And so, we get that. If there's a demand for non-GM corn, then we have markets and other channels that would facilitate those transactions. You don't need to violate a trade deal to meet that demand. There are easier ways, far easier ways to be able to do that. So as to the reasons why, it's hard to say, but this is an easy thing to resolve when you think about all the other things that we're trying to manage stage, with our relationship with Mexico, corn should not be a problem.
Are you pleased to this point how the administration has stepped up on this issue, or would you like to see more?
So thankful that they acted this week, and we would like to have seen that a little bit sooner, but we do have bipartisan support in Congress as well. And so this is one of the issues that have really brought members from both sides of the aisle together in support of their corn farmers, and we're grateful for that. I mean, I think that just kind of shows you how people feel about trade and corn in particular. So we're encouraged by that bipartisan support. We're encouraged by the support that we're seeing from Secretary Vilsack in particular. He has been a very vocal advocate for us, and we are grateful for that support and leadership, and we will keep pressing until this is finally resolved.
Neil Caskey, Chief Executive Officer of the National Corn Growers Association. By the way, that's a new job for Neil. He was named the CEO of the National Corn Growers just a few days before coming here to the Commodity Classic in Orlando, Florida.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. We're taking a look at the markets this week with Matt Roberts, the senior grain and oilseeds economist with Terrain. Matt, we saw the USDA release their March World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates report. How did it impact the corn market? Were there any big changes to the balance sheet?
Domestically, there were no big changes. There was a cut of exports of 75 million bushels. Of course, we're talking old crop here. We kind of expected that. Exports have been disappointing all year. The bigger news was really the big cut in Argentinian production. We know Argentina's been really dry this spring, so they cut Argentinian production 7 million metric tons, which was a pretty aggressive cut. Most analysts think of the USDA being pretty conservative on their international estimates. This was a big one. This pretty much brings it in line with probably even some of the more pessimistic analysts.
Okay. So on the flip side, we've heard lots of good things about the acreage in Brazil. Did they raise Brazil's corn production at all?
They didn't. It still largely stays the same. We look at the rest of the globe, it largely stays the same. And at the end of the day, what really matters to us and to our growers is what's happening to our exports, how we sell, and how we're going to react. And those, again, they've been weak all year, 75 million bushel cut, and I think probably there's another 50 million bushels left down the year unless we really start to pick up.
All right, Matt, over on the soybean side of the ledger, did USDA make any big adjustments?
Kind of similar. So they backtracked a little bit. If you go back to January, they cut the exports in January by 50 million bushels. Backtracked a little, added 25 more. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't really see why they needed to do that 50 in January. I think they may still end up adding some more as we move through the rest of the year. They're, of course, looking at Brazil, huge crop coming out down there, and think we're going to perform very, very poorly the rest of the year. I still have hope. I think we're going to get around it. But once again, bigger cut was what they did in Argentina. Big cut to Argentinian production, much larger than what we're used to seeing out of the USDA.
Matt, the soy grind has been very strong for the past couple of years. Do you anticipate that to continue here as we get into the summer?
It is. I mean, we're seeing crushing facilities come online probably every quarter. I think for the next 18 months, on average, we're going to see another soy facility come online. That's huge. I mean, we now, and of course, as we know, renewable diesel, one of the big drivers. Renewable diesel, I believe it was in December, actually surpassed biodiesel in total production in the United States. And the curves of the two, you can't even compare. Biodiesel, we're seeing growth there, but we're seeing just exponential growth when we talk about renewable diesel. And that's almost all being driven at this point by new crush.
New crush, and that's all soybean oil for the most part at this point, isn't it, Matt?
Vast majority. There are some other oils coming in, there's some fats coming in, but in reality, even if none of that came directly from soybean oil, it all pulls from that same big pool of fats and oils.
Lots to think about, folks. We'll be back for more with Dr. Matt Roberts from Terrain in just a moment. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. We're talking markets this week with Matt Roberts, Senior Grain and Oilseeds Analyst with Terrain. And Matt, we were talking about the March supply and demand estimates from the USDA, and it was a quiet report for the wheat market, wasn't it?
It was, and March typically is. We're not yet in the WASDE looking at new crop. We're still in this dead period, so some years they'll have some export changes. They might have a little bit of feed demand change, but in reality, very, very slow market, or very slow report. Now, it doesn't mean that the wheat market itself has been slow. There's still been a lot going on. It's continued to be weak, and it's really been something that I think a lot of people in the market, or certainly growers in the market, probably are frustrated. They're seeing prices continue to go down. When I talk to growers, I spent a lot of time in western Kansas just last week. They're looking at the fields, they're awful. And why are prices going down? There's an old saying, bull markets need fed. We're not getting new information. The market knows the fields are in bad shape, and it continues to react to that, okay? Or it's priced that in. Now it's drifting. We get some pops when we talk about the grain corridor, we talk about Ukraine, we talk about Russia. So there's drama around that. It kind of feels like a middle school fight here. But I really don't think that goes away, but we're going to continue to see a little bit of drama surrounding that.
Matt, exports have been tough. You mentioned it on the corn side. We've also seen it on the wheat side. A lot of that has been because of the strength in the U.S. dollar, and recently it's gotten strong again. Where do you think these interest rates are going to go as we get into this new year?
Well, just this week we saw Powell testifying on Capitol Hill for 2 days. He made very clear that the Fed's view is that inflation has not responded enough to the higher interest rates, and so they're going to continue to go higher. The market now thinks instead of ending up at 5.25%, 5.5%, it's probably going to end up at about 6% in the Fed funds rate before they stop cutting. And so that strengthens the dollar. A big turnaround over the past 6 weeks, and particularly for something like wheat that typically is going into much more price conscientious areas, that makes our wheat exports a lot harder. But it's not just wheat. We see it already in corn, beans, in oil. The good news is we also see it in fertilizer.
Could you explain that a little bit, Matt?
Sure. When the dollar goes up, foreign things that are produced overseas or priced internationally, their prices go down. Now, if we're sellers, that's not a great thing. When we're buyers, when we're importers, that's a good thing. So it's added some additional downward pressure on nitrogen prices coming up the Gulf. Now, hasn't fully gotten through to retail, but it's more pressure, and we are seeing it starting to filter.
Matt, folks are concerned about these rising interest rates. What should farmers watch in the economy to try and decide if they are going to continue going higher? What are the indicators you use?
I tend to look at the labor market. I look at what's going on in prices. Yes, we hear about these headline numbers. Dig down in and see what's really driving it. And what's been driving this is really labor and it's rent. And those are hard things to really slow down with the economy and just with interest rates. We're not yet really seeing high interest rates have a big impact on consumer spending, because most of us don't have, unless you have a car loan, our home loans they're fixed long term. Our car loans aren't. They're fixed, but maybe we do that more often. Credit cards are already 18%, so 18, 23, who cares? So that's the big thing. We haven't really seen the consumer respond yet. When we see that, I think we'll start to see the Fed relax a little bit.
Things to watch for. That's Dr. Matt Roberts, Senior Grain and Oilseeds Economist with Terrain.
Chad's technology segments are brought to you here on This Week in Agribusiness by Copperhead Ag. He has become quite famous for his reports on what's happening with technology and agriculture, and you would expect him to be here. Well, he's at almost all of the shows. He was looking ahead, though. He was not in Orlando. He was in Vegas for the Construction Equipment Show. It gives us a little bit of a preview.
Very rarely do I get to do a show preview, and this past week I was in Las Vegas as manufacturers and vendors from all over the world where they're preparing for the 2023 ConExpo ConAg Show. And let me tell you, if you've never attended this show, this is the granddaddy of them all in North America for construction. It happens every 3 years. I've been to the last two, and let me tell you, there's so much technology at this show. The show runs next week from the 14th to the 18th, so you still have time. You can see cool things like John Deere's new battery-powered excavator. And speaking of battery-powered equipment, there is a ton of it. And we all know that's kind of the precursor to agriculture, right? They test it out, get it working in construction, and then it's a pretty easy transition over to agriculture. Certainly there's going to be a lot of great technology, and I look forward to finding some of those unique applications that you might find interesting. I talked to the folks at Caterpillar, and they are certainly going to continue to evolve and show their new remote control technology. I was told by one of the fellas, you'll be able to run a bulldozer that's a couple thousand miles away while you're at the show in Las Vegas. If you've never been to ConExpo, it's really hard for me to describe. They've got 2.7 million square feet. There's been equipment over the last 2 weeks moving all over North America, in fact, all over the world, bringing all that equipment. Let me tell you, I've never seen a show like this in terms of organization. There's so many trucks and so many hundreds of people that are working around the clock to bring you this great show. And it takes an army to do it. Let me tell you, it's a really great event. So listen, one other thing I've got to share with you. If you've been quiet on social media here the last couple weeks, maybe you've missed it. But did you hear Big Bud is back in business and they're making tractors, and their very first one, guess where they're going to show it? That's right, they're going to show it in Las Vegas. Now you can see this tractor here, I would say is a pre-production model. There's a few things that aren't quite done yet, but certainly I'll have a little more to share on that next week.
All right, Chad, thank you. We look forward to next week's report. Chad's technology segments are brought to you here on This Week in Agribusiness by Copperhead Ag. We'll look forward to him being with us again from Vegas next week here on our show. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness, where every weekend at this time, Charlie Behrens tells you something about some state, its agriculture industry that I bet you did not know. And Charlie, in his own inevitable way, shows us New Mexico.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens and welcome to the Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit of appreciation for all of the great things that farmers are producing across the country. Today we're talking about the state that's home to the oldest capital in the country and is nicknamed the Land of Enchantment. You still drawing a blank? All right, here's a gimme. It's like Mexico, but newer. New Mexico, good guess. Now, New Mexico has an incredibly diverse landscape, ranging from forested mountains in the north to a vast white sand desert in the west and the south. Fun fact, 6 of the 7 life zones found in the entire world exist in New Mexico. Now, if you're like me and don't know what life zones are, I did a little Google search, so you don't have to. Life zones are classified by vegetation types and vary by altitude and orientation to the sun. What that means is that depending on the elevation, there can be completely different terrains in a matter of feet. And yes, there will be a test at the end of this video, so I hope you're taking notes. For more than 2 centuries, New Mexico's economy was centered around cattle ranching and being a cowboy. This state ain't big enough for the 2 of us.
Ride 'em, cowboy.
And today, both are still a big business with nearly 25,000 farms or ranches in operation. In more recent years, dairy farming has taken a lead role though. Today, the state ranks 9th nationally for milk production and is on the top 5 for cheese production. Good for them. Sorry, that was cheesy. In one area, the state grows corn, wheat, alfalfa, hay, cotton, and about 400,000 pounds of onions every single year, ranking them 5th in the nation in onion production. That's nothing to cry about. Pretty diverse for a state that most people just assume is a giant desert. I mean, what can't this state produce? It's nuts. Speaking of which, New Mexico farmers grow pecans, pistachios, and peanuts that are processed and shipped all over the globe. So the next time you're throwing out an assorted nut bowl at your cocktail party, you can thank New Mexico. But Charlie, technically aren't peanuts legumes and pistachio seeds? Yeah, I know, but find a better transition, I dare you. Okay, back to it. New Mexico leads the nation in pecan production, along with the state of Georgia. In 2018, New Mexico reigned supreme with 91.1 million pounds of pecans produced. And that is a lot of pecan pie. Or pecan pie, no judgment. Now, if there's one crop New Mexico likes to hang its cowboy hat on, it's the chili pepper. It leads the nation for chili pepper production. On average, New Mexico produces 75% of the nation's chili peppers. And thankfully, they got that dairy production, because we're gonna need a lot of milk. Now, while some chili peppers are red hot, there are many varieties that can be grown. The chilies grown in New Mexico are called Hatch chili peppers, named for New Mexico peppers that are grown and harvested in the Hatch Valley region, affectionately referred to as the chili capital of the world. Tums sold separately. And each year during the Labor Day weekend, more than 30,000 people from around the country journey to Hatch, New Mexico for the Hatch Chili Festival, which celebrates the world-famous crop. All right, before I get going, I can't forget to mention that New Mexico has seen recent growth among organic and specialty farms. From vintage wine vineyards to niche crops like lavender, the New Mexico agricultural scene continues to grow. And now that I got the attention of all the Pinterest fanatics out there, you'll be happy to know that today there are over 150 certified organic farms across the state. All right, that's all the time we have for now, but you can always go to pivotbio.com/agstates and click on the show icon to explore more about the agriculture of your favorite states and test your knowledge to win prizes and more. We'll see you next time on the Agricultural States of America. I'm gonna go crack a couple pistachios. Why can't they crack all of them though? You know how some aren't like totally cracked and it's like, it's up to me now? You know, I can't handle that pressure in my life. I need them pre-cracked.
Oh, we always appreciate Charlie's look at the Ag States of America all across America, made possible by the folks at Pivot Bio. Krista Schwartz joins us here at Commodity Classic. You folks have a lot going on, something new and exciting.
We do. So this year we are launching On Seed with our Proven 40 and Return. So before we've always had liquid in furrow, which is applied at the time of planting, and now so we can put our Pivot Bio microbes on seed so that they don't require any extra equipment.
So your local dealer supplier will be able to be up to speed on this and help producers immediately.
Absolutely. So we have trained extensively our Pivot Bio reps who are also going to be our on-seed applicators. So they have an understanding of how the treatment process works, and we want to make sure that our growers are set up for success right from the beginning.
Pivotbio.com for more information.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Krista. We sure appreciate it. Krista Schwartz joining us here at Commodity Classic for the On Seed story. And of course, Pivot Bio brings your way every weekend Ag States of America. As Charlie takes a look at the agriculture industry all across the United States, you can see more of that if you go to the website, pivotbio.com/agstates. Oh my, it is a cold weather forecast in the days ahead that Mr. Solier has put together for us. If you think spring is here, oh, hang on. Some wintry weather coming your way. Stay with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Welcome back to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. Hang on, Mr. Solier has his 4-week weather forecast coming up. And you may have thought spring arrived at your place. Well, not just yet. We're going to visit about planters here for the next few minutes. We're here at the Case IH exhibit at the Commodity Classic. Dave Brennan, that's your area of expertise, planter marketing manager. And you've been talking about some new planters while here.
Yeah, a lot of excitement on the lot here today, Max, with some new product announcements. And for me, with thinking about planting being right around the corner, extremely exciting because I've got, for the first time I can remember, 2 planters on my lot. So I get to show off 2 of my new early riser configurations. So pretty excited about that.
2110 and the 2150, right?
Yeah, so 2110 really rounds out our lineup of early riser planters. It gets us into that rigid mounted configuration for growers in bedded conditions, maybe peanuts, cotton, high value vegetable crops.
Some smaller fields also.
Yeah, absolutely, but gives those growers access for the first time factory fit and finish of a high technology row unit that they're really demanding in the market today.
2150?
Yeah, so 2150, the message behind that is that it's efficiency. And so you'll see liquid fertilizer, which is becoming more and more of a norm in the planter market, a larger tank on that. So less time between fills and more time in the seed, putting seed in the ground.
The clock is ticking. I know many folks have done their planter work already to get it ready to go, but yet I just visited with a fellow yesterday who said we're still working on it in the shop. Where are some of the tension points where farmers should really zero in to make sure that they're going to be operating at optimum capability?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of try to keep it as simple as possible, right? And so we start with the path of seed, and we'll look at seed being put in either the on-row hopper or the bulk fill system, and making sure that that system is up to par, that there's no deficiencies in it, leaks, those types of things that we need to address. And then I really go down and focus that area around the seed trench and where seed is placed. So ground engaging components, bearings, all of the normal stuff we want to check to make sure that they're up to par and that we're optimizing that seed placement in the ground.
You want to check your meter, you want to make sure everything is ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the early riser planter and that electric drive meter that we've got on there, there's not a lot of maintenance to it, but still important because it's really the heart of that planter and making sure that it's accurate. Now, the electronics on that planter are good enough, they're going to catch any deficiency in that meter, but we definitely want to make sure that we've got that checked pre-season.
It is such a crucial operation, as every grower knows, and that doggone window is getting so narrow. I mean, just looking at the weather maps coming up here on the show, boy, it may be a time when you can go in a very short span of hours, I guess.
Yeah, so absolutely, we see growers trying to get more and more done in that tight window, fighting against Mother Nature to get that done. And so increasing ground speed or width is the only way to increase your efficiency. And so if we see that ground speed increase, which we have over the years, 10 mile an hour was always the buzzword, and it still continues to be. We've got growers increasing to that speed and increasing their efficiency and their productivity through increasing that ground speed.
And still getting that picket fence appearance.
Yep,
there.
absolutely, getting that beautiful stand, nice, uniform, even emergence.
Thank you, Dave. We sure appreciate it. Nice to visit with you.
You bet. Thank you.
The story on the 2110 and 2150 and getting your planter ready for the planting season. Just ahead, Dave Brennan, Planting Marketing Manager with Case IH. Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. Oh my, when you take a look at that weather scene in the west, they have continued to pile up the big snows in those mountains of California. Two-edged sword, some damage there, but beneficial moisture for irrigation. Let's see what Greg's looking at in the week ahead.
Well, thanks much. And hey, it's drought relief that continues on, but at the same time, the look and feel of midwinter time over a wide area, the plains and the western states through the upper Midwest as well. No real spring per se. And even over the southern states, we're keeping an eye on this cold air intrusion. Here's the source region across the Canadian prairie. One weather system from the Black Hills on southward. Pacific Northwest busy as well. Into Northern California, it's been a tough go of it the past few weeks with calving operations, 10 to maybe 15% complete. Montana through North Dakota, keeping an eye on the cold and the snowpack as well. And we will add to it with one weather system again, diving into the northern plains along the periphery of this late season Arctic air. Chill in the air across the four corners in our Mountain West and northward, Northern California, Pacific Northwest, another weather system ashore. These are not big ones, but they will certainly continue to add to additional drought relief and snow across the northern Sierra and the Cascades. Central and southern Sierra, 145 inches on average of snow cover. You melt it down, it's almost 4 feet of water, of rain. So a runoff perspective is certainly ideal, but we're still in cleanup and recovery mode. Southern California, where there's some shower activity here early in the week to clean up and recovery from the barrage of severe weather a few weeks ago. How about the high wind of late through West Texas, the Southwest High Plains? A little moisture squashing that, but there's more snow on the Central Plains. We continue to nibble away with modest drought improvement. Still the worst of it, Nebraska, Kansas, and points on southward. Cool, windy weather, Southern California, high pressure builds on in. Quiet weather across the plains, but cold weather with, again, Oklahoma, West Texas, and the desert Southwest seeing additional shower activity, both rain and snow. Very cold air, down below zero at night. Red River Valley to the north, across the Dakotas, big sky country. Systems continuing to run the periphery of that advancing late season cold. Another round of rain and snow across the Corn Belt locales. Yeah, that balmy feel of springtime is over with for the foreseeable future, but at least the severe weather and the high wind as well. And none of that expected here for this week, but it's a parade of weather systems again advancing on this cold air. Sets up across the upper Midwest, northern plains, western Great Lakes region. Another one of these rain snow mixes out of the Great Plains across the heart of the Corn Belt into the Ohio Valley, and the lake effect snow machine continues on as well. Hey, the ice on the Great Lakes, by the way, only about 7 to 10%. Normally 35 to 40% of those Great Lakes areas are frozen on over at this point in wintertime. Windy, colder weather across parts of Kansas. Seasonal environs for the lower Rio Grande into the southeastern states. Warm weather through the Delta, but showers and thunderstorms are back into the forecast of the propensity for severe weather here. Delta region on southward, back into colder weather, but again, it's additional moisture, both rain and snow to Oklahoma, and a drop off in temperatures slated for the southwestern sections of the country. Boy, we have been all over the place on temperatures, high winds, severe weather, and then you put down accumulating snow. That was the story over the past week to 10 days, and there's much colder air up towards the Sioux. A bit of a recovery into the Ohio Valley, into the northeast of New England, but it's another front or two on the move with significant amounts of rain and snow and coverage, but moisture amounts will stay on the light side. One feature into the northeast of New England, mild environs across the mid-Atlantic region, much colder air, again, more or less of a February feel over the northern western Corn Belt locales and the upper Midwest. Another one of these rain-snow mixtures anticipated as well. Boy, the southeastern states, phenomenal crop growth and development and planting as well. With some of this record and near record-setting warmth, we get another prod of it, and showers and thunderstorms ahead of one boundary. This is the leading edge of this sharp change to colder weather west of the Delta here, middle parts of the week as we get deeper into the month of March. Heads up on frost and freeze potential over a wide area of the southeastern states.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. Well, after this time change weekend, we have spring coming in a few days. But Greg Solier points out there's plenty of moisture and there is plenty of cold weather too. Let's switch into Greg now for his 4-week weather forecast.
Well, it's another busy spell and active weather pattern ahead this week, virtually coast to coast. But at the same time here over the weeks of wintertime, significant drought relief has been the story over areas of the western Corn Belt, eastern complex. Now over the southeastern part of the country, still in the midst of some dryness concerns down through Florida. 1/2 to 1 inch expected there. Look at the rain snow line meandering all the way down through Dixie into the Pacific Northwest. Later in the week, we do get another shot of moisture into Southern California, the bulk of which plays out through the northern and central Rockies, Cascades, and Sierra Range. Solid coverages, moisture amounts, liquid amounts, probably 1/2 to 1 inch in many areas of the Corn Belt. And yeah, we're keeping an eye on those streams and rivers. Already some sense of flooding into parts of the central and southern Corn Belt. Over the southeastern states, the propensity for severe weather anticipated. So again, plenty of moisture in one form or another, virtually coast to coast for this week. Looking ahead now, springtime officially clocks in on the 20th here, a little before 4:30 in the afternoon, the central time zone. Look at this mammoth mound of Arctic air poised through the upper Midwest, Canadian Prairie, below average Pacific Northwest into the St. Lawrence River Valley. Some semblance of warmth over the southern states. A little brief recovery here, but note how these isobars and isotherms are compact along the jet stream pattern. That means a busy weather pattern, more late season snows through the Pacific Northwest, northern and central plains into the upper Midwest and across the northeast of New England, Ohio River Valley, southeastern states into severe weather mode, drying out over the southwestern sections of the country. Now moving into temperatures, here comes the cold. We'll have a snippet here over the next week to 10 days, and then by the beginning part of April, we'll look out. Boy, readings are well below average here with Texas, a corn in the ground, 20 to 25%. That could be in jeopardy. Fruit trees as well over the southeastern states. We'll keep an eye on that. Temperatures about normal down through Florida. A little sliver of warmth over the Rio Grande into the valleys of California. That directional jet stream pattern in out of the western parts of the hemisphere down through the southern plains, swinging to the east will keep clipper systems on the move. The likelihood of late season snows. Pacific Northwest, there will be some drought relief, but it comes in the form of snow livestock managers for the Great Plains, central and northern Corn Belt locales. Southeastern states look to be wet as well. As we get maybe into some semblance of planting, perhaps by the first week to 10 days of the month of April, the cold air retreats somewhat. It's going to be here for the weeks to come. Well into springtime, some warmth over the western states, southeastern part of the country. Temperatures about normal throughout much of the Corn Belt, northern and central plains, but it's a busy weather pattern again with added drought relief for the Pacific Northwest, Great Plains areas. Not much planting expected here. Corn Belt locales, it's a return to wetter weather and some snow melt too into the northeast of New England. Severe weather for the Tennessee Valley, back to dry mode for West Texas and into the southwestern sections of the country.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
At Max's Tractor Shed this weekend, I told folks on my personal Facebook page, show me your gauges. And several folks did. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants, made to make it last. Well, I found that while folks do take pictures of their tractors from the side, from the front, sometimes from the rear end, they do photograph the gauges. Take a look at some of these. This has to be one of the prettiest control panels. I'm telling you, this is a Farmall 460. This tractor made about 60 years ago, owned by Kevin Blackburn of Paducah, Kentucky. Look, he even has the choke pulled out a little bit there, and over on the right side you can see the cigarette lighter. On a John Deere M, here's a good view. Mark Jenkins owns this tractor at Clements, Maryland. You can see the water temperature and the amperage there on that John Deere, more than 60 years old. Now here's a Farmall all gauged up. I can't see most of the tractor. I just know I'd love it if I could see the whole package. A 1966 Farmall 1206. Alan Albright of Scioto, Ohio owns it. Here's a John Deere that some of you can identify with. It's working in the snow. Rennie Maya of Clearfield, Utah was out there with a tractor at least 25 years old, a 6300 made back in the 90s. And check out this night scene, a beautiful night scene of this 1466 International. At Farmington, Illinois, you see the red of the IH windbreaker. You see the brown of the corn stubble out there in the field at night, and you see the green of the gauges. Eric Stanley's International 1466 at Farmington, Illinois. Well, it's a busy auction season. Mark Stock reminds us of that as he takes a look at what they'll be selling in the week ahead.
Max, it was great seeing you at Commodity Classic. March is a very busy month for auctions. The Mark Hasenschultz Estate in Gladbrook, Iowa is Tuesday, March the 14th, selling a 2021 John Deere S670 combine with only 143 separator hours. There's a John Deere 9320 tractor, John Deere 4960, John Deere 4755, all exceptionally low-hour tractors. We've got a great lineup selling on March the 16th for Corey Conley from Trescott, Kansas, a 2007 Peterbilt 378 day cab semi. There's a 2020 Patriot 245C seed tender, a Case International 4420 sprayer. Also March 16th, Kenny Engeman Senior Trust Estate Auction in Marthasville, Missouri features a 2007 Kenworth W900 day cab. They've got a Kenworth W900 dump truck and a Cat 325L excavator, Cat 963 track loader. They have two 2020 year model East Genesis 39-foot aluminum dump trailers. Duncan and Olson Equipment Auction in Rossville, Illinois features 255 items. Big sale, folks, late model John Deere equipment. All selling in March. Go to BigIron.com and SullivanAuctioneers.com for all the latest information.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. And we're meeting that next generation of American agriculturalist. This week, it's Claire Walker. She serves as the president of the Chillicothe, Missouri FFA. Claire, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me.
You are currently serving as president. Can you fill us in? What are some of the important roles of the president of an FFA chapter?
At least in my chapter, some of the things that I do as president in my roles are filling out applications so we can get recognition for our chapter or grants that we do, planning a lot of the projects that we do within our communities and our local areas to build connections with our community and the people inside of it. And then we also plan organizations to encourage member recruitment and retention.
That is a lot on your plate. Claire, what was it that made you first want to be a part of FFA?
Honestly, what first made me want to do it was the fact that I had my brother doing it and my cousins had been in it. And at first I thought it was something that was expected of me, something that since I lived on a farm with cattle, that was obviously the next step. But then as I got on in FFA, I realized that it is so much more than growing corn and having cows. And there's so many opportunities that FFA presents, such as public speaking and other teams that help people grow as leaders and their personal selves.
And you had a chance to perform some of those public speaking competitions, didn't you?
Yes, this past fall, I went to state for Missouri Cattlemen's Association, where I wrote a speech about beef substitutes and diet substitutes.
It's fantastic to get that information out there. Claire, as this year goes forward, what are you looking forward to with the Chillicothe FFA chapter?
As we go forward, I'm very excited for our end of the year banquet. And as this is my senior year, this will honestly be the last thing I'll be partaking in as chapter president. And that is something that a lot of our chapter looks forward to because it's an end of the year wrap up. It gives recognition to a lot of students. We have our top 10 from each grade and funny memories that we make and other things that bring us all together.
That's fantastic, folks. That's Claire Walker, president of the Chillicothe, Missouri FFA.
Well, we've been the guests of Case IH here at Commodity Classic in Orlando, Florida. We've appreciated the opportunity to, reminisce a little bit about the farm old heritage, but also talk about this path to automation and autonomy for Case IH. And Kendall Quandall joins us here to talk about this. First of all, review a little bit how we've gotten to where we are today. It's covered a span of about 30 years, as I recall.
Absolutely. So we talk a lot about autonomy and automation today, but we really have had a very lengthy journey. You think about yield monitors and the progress of that and the introduction of guidance, which is really the foundation of automation for us. That's really been a long time journey.
And AFS has been a part of that story for many years. I mean, the name came along quite a few years ago.
Yes, the AFS, or Advanced Farming Systems, is how we refer to all of our precision technology features and functions that we have today.
Take us through the terminology a little bit. I think there's some confusion sometimes between the automation and the autonomy.
Yeah, so automation and autonomy are both part of a bigger precision agriculture space. And when we talk about automation, we're really looking at features that help out the operator. So whether that's soil command or harvest command, where there are sensors throughout the machine that are taking action on behalf of the operator, that's really an automation function. When we look at autonomy, that's kind of that, remove the driver or take the operator a step back. And there's more of that, true machine learning and things like that come forward.
Not too many months ago at a Farm Progress show, I recall seeing a sprayer in action out there. And of course, it's a reminder of the new alliance that you folks have at Case IH and CNH with a company that has a great heritage in autonomy.
Yeah, so very exciting release at Farm Progress show. We got to talk about the Trident 5550 with Raven Autonomy, and that was really one of the first products that we have that come forward with that Case IH and Raven combined message.
There was the autonomous concept tractor, and I know it's still in the Experience Center in Racine, Wisconsin, and I had the privilege of voicing, I think it was about a 7-minute video, CNH autonomous tractor, and I think it lives yet out there on YouTube, but some of the imagery is just really amazing when you watch that tractor as it could be someday moving through the field and avoiding objects and operating with precision.
Absolutely. The autonomous concept vehicle, or ACV, was released, and the things that we learned from that have been critical to us moving forward today. Controlling an implement, making a vehicle turn around on the end of the row, things like that are all things we learned through that autonomous concept vehicle project, and those are things we've implemented for customers today.
So stay tuned. It's coming quickly, right? A lot
It
of
is
advances.
coming quickly. It's faster than we can take it.
Is your background in agriculture, by the way?
It sure is. I grew up on a family farm in northeast Iowa. I still get to go home and farm with my parents on the weekend, and I wouldn't change it.
So many of the folks in the company not only have a background in agriculture, some still farm.
Absolutely. We say built by farmers, and that is true of most of my counterparts that I work with. We've all got some kind of agriculture touch point.
An up-close knowledge of the industry, by all means.
Definitely. You don't learn that in a book.
Thank you, Kendall. Nice to visit with you.
You too. Thanks.
Kendall Quandal with Case IH joining us here at Commodity Classic, where it's just been a wonderful week, having the opportunity to visit with growers from all over the United States and hearing their individual stories. And we're always appreciative of those who say, yeah, we happened to see your broadcast. Thanks for joining us this weekend. We'll be back here next week. Mr. Pearson, along with Greg Solier, yours truly, Max Armstrong. We hope you have a great week. So long, everyone. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.